minister, poet, and activist who serves as the Minister of Worship and Outreach at the Beacon Unitarian Universalist congregation in Summit, New Jersey. Today, we share in a blessing for losers, risk takers, all failures, far and wide. Blessed are they who fall in the mud, who jump with gusto and rip the pants, who skin the elbows and bruise the ego. For they shall know the sweetness of risk. Blessed are they who make giant mistakes, whose intentions are good but impact has injured, who know the hot sense of regret and ask for mercy, for their hearts will know the gift of forgiveness. Blessed are they who have seen a D or an F or a C or any letter less than perfect, who are painfully familiar with the red pen and the labels as less than, for they know the wisdom in the imperfect. Blessed are they who try again, who dust off, who wash up, who extend the wish for peace, who return to sites of failure, who are dogged in their pursuit, for they will discover the secret to dreams. Blessed are they who refuse to listen to the naysayers, for their hearts will be houses for hope. Blessed are they who see beyond the surface of another, for they will be able to delight in the gift of compassion. Blessed are they who stop running the race to help a fellow traveler, to pick up the fallen, those who stop for injured life, for they shall know the kindness of strangers. Blessed are they who wildly, boldly abandon winning, for they shall know the path of justice. Good morning to you all. Thanks for having me out here, and your minister had filled in for me when I was off a couple months ago, and so this is an asynchronous pulpit exchange. So I get to come now when I have the availability and she's off, and I like that. I like our movement. The last time I was here was, I believe, March 9th, 2020, and then you all shut down a week or two later. Yeah, that's the last time I was a guest preacher here. So it's good to be back. It's good to see people out and about and engaged in Unitarian Universalism. To those of you who are just visiting here, it's like me. I've only been here one other time before, but seems like a good place, so come on back. Yeah. I want to thank Corey, Joseph, Holly, Karen, everyone who has helped me feel welcome and ready to preach today. And that's a blessing, to understand that it takes so many people to make something like a Sunday morning work. And so for all of you who have made this Sunday morning work, thank you. Thank you for the blessing. You will know the generosity of others because you've done it yourself. This sermon is on seeking a blessing, on finding blessings, on retaining blessings, on reminding each other that we are, in fact, as Rachel Naomi Raymond says, we are all born to be a blessing. And so I bring to you this morning a broad sense in which I will wander around. That's why I'm not in the pulpit. You stay on track and you have one theme and you work it to the end. And I'm out here and I'm just kind of wandering around with this theme. This theme on blessing. The story of the blessing cup is something that many of our families have some such story. I have from my Armenian grandfather the story of coming over as the Turks were coming in and forcing out the Armenians. We know that there are those who speak from the various locations of how they all found their way to wherever they are. Maybe it was a job opportunity here. Something brought people to a place where they had never been before. We know as well, and I know this especially in Western North Carolina and what's left of the Eastern Band Cherokee, we know as well that this story of America also has people who were made to be refugees even in their own lands, who were given promises and then had those promises taken away. When we hear the stories and we hear the symbolism of what gets passed down, we remember how important it is that we have received a blessing from someone. Maybe it is like the good doctor on the way who says, "Here, I will help give you safe passage." Maybe it is someone who along the way said, "I will mentor you. I will help you practice. I will walk with you." To be with one another is a blessing. It's one of the worst punishments ever, and hotly debated as to how long and how much it should be allowed, even in prisons, to be isolated, to be solitary. Our sense of justice reacts strongly to those who are forced away, locked up, penned up. Blessings for us are something that we may seek. There are stories throughout time, and I grew up in an atheistic, humanistic, Unitarian Universalist congregation. And so I heard religious stories, and I would hear, well, Ann Landers would be quoted from the pulpit. I would hear all sorts of wisdom from all over. And then I realized, you know what, there's this whole rich biblical stuff too with stories. And I'm going to share a biblical story with you. And what you don't know is how I share biblical stories is from that point of freedom, of having grown up not thinking there's only one way to interpret. Now, I understand that my ancestors, my great-great-grandmother's brothers, came from Armenia to California to preach to the heathens. That is the 49ers. They probably got the biblical stories better than I do, but I'm giving it a try. So here we go. So we know things in the Bible start in Genesis with Adam and Eve, the first family. Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. I think we've improved a lot since the first family. We have, in that very first family, what? Of the 4 residents that are named, 1 killed another. We have a really hard time as human beings not killing each other, but we're doing better now. Yeah, I know, there's lots of war on TV, but we are doing better statistically than 1 out of 4 of us being an absolute murderer. Okay? I think we're improving. There's other stories from the Bible that talk about families and family dynamics. And I want to say that there is in every room the stories of those who remember the ways in which their childhood was not a place of love and abundance and blessing, in which there were shortages of all of those things, compassion included, in which violence may have been visited on the youngest. That carries a cost. That goes forward into life. It takes heroics and stamina to go on in life without the kind of grounding for the blessing that you need in life. In the Bible, there's a story of Esau and Jacob. Esau is born with Jacob. We'd say in our time now, they were twins. They were born as twins. Back then, in that society, there was a big deal of who is first. Who's the firstborn male, especially? Well, Esau was born, and Jacob was holding on to the ankle of Esau, as if trying to get ahead and catch up. And throughout life, Jacob was trying to strive to get what it would be to have a blessing, to be recognized, to have everything. And when it was time for their father to be old and starting to decline and say, I need to pass on a blessing, Father Isaac told Esau, I will give you the blessing, my son, if you will go and hunt fresh meat and cook up venison and serve it to me. Esau was good at this. Esau went out and did that. Jacob, however, decided to put on animal skins to feel rough and hairy like his brother Esau and go in and serve food to his father to get the blessing. And Dad, Isaac, says, well, you kind of sound like Jacob, but you feel like Esau, so I'll give you the blessing. And then Esau comes back with a lovely meal and says, here, Father, here's your lovely meal. Father says, oh, I am so sorry. I already gave away my blessing. I gave it to your brother, who I thought was you. Now, in what family is there only one blessing to give? I mean, what are we to learn from this story? Why is it Isaac had only one blessing to give? How could you only have one? And it was supposed to go to the firstborn male. It's not feminist. It's not what we understand of the capacity of love of all of us. It's like passing on blessings. Even in the story at the very end, when the cup breaks in two, the two pieces are given to children. Each child could get a piece. What is wrong with Isaac? There is an excuse. It's not talked about in concordances and Bible studies. Isaac was born to Abraham, right? If I get this right. Abraham, when Isaac was born, said, my firstborn male, I will sacrifice him. And it was only at the last minute God said, I don't need this sacrifice. Sacrifice the goat instead. To me, Isaac is doing pretty good to have any blessing whatsoever to pass on, having grown up in a family in which the dad said, oh no, the first thing I do, you're born? Great, I'm going to kill you. I don't know the rest of the family dynamic, but that's got to come from a place where if a person has only one blessing to give, it may not only be cultural, it may be from a sense of just barely having made it themselves. So what does Jacob do? Jacob realized he's kind of stolen his brother's blessing, so he hightails it out of there. And he goes and he finds work with a farmer, and he falls in love with the farmer's daughter and asks to marry the farmer's daughter. And the farmer says, if you work for me for 7 years, I'll give you my daughter in marriage. He works for 7 years, and the farmer says, here, marry my daughter. And under the veil is a different daughter. And Jacob says, no, that's not the daughter that we agreed on. Okay, well then work another 7 years and you can get the daughter you want. So Jacob is gone for a long period of time. And then he decides to send gifts home and say, hey, brother, I'm returning. I'm coming home. You love me, right, brother? I stole your blessing, but you love me, right? So he's coming home. And on the way, there is a mysterious figure who stops him. And this mysterious figure wrestles with him. And in many of the interpretations, this is an angel. To wrestle with an angel is a big deal thing. And as Jacob's wrestling with this angel, the angel then wants to leave after the wrestling is done. And Jacob holds on. Just like with Esau and being born, Jacob holds on. And Jacob says, I'm not going to let you go. You have to give me a blessing. How hard have you sought a blessing? How many of you have gone back to parents, grandparents, somebody, or along the way tried to find somebody who's going to fill in for a blessing that you feel like you never got the blessing you needed? Time and again, I believe human beings are looking for some kind of affirmation. I belong here. I can be here. I have a place in life. I have a future here. Now, I was really lucky as a kid. The introduction that Holly read said that as a UU teenager, I'd wander the woods and pretend to be a transcendentalist. I'd wander those woods, and I laid down on a bed of moss one time, and I had I couldn't explain it with the language I was given, but I will say it was a spiritual experience in which I felt like I was connected with life, the universe, and everything for a moment. And in that moment, I felt like the universe was made up of all these people. And way over here was this little star, and that represented me. And from that moment on, it didn't matter. Well, of course it mattered. I got bullied. I was always last picked in gym. I was, whatever. But I had the sense from that teen year onward that there is a place for me in this whole vast universe of us. I don't know what worked for you, or if it hasn't worked yet and you're still finding your way. Maybe you walked in here and you said, oh, finally, I am where I belong. But we strive really hard. So Jacob strived really hard. I want a blessing. You see, he realized he had stolen a blessing, and he wanted his own blessing. And the angel says, would you let go, please? It doesn't say that in the text, but this is a loose reading. Would you let go, please? This is my turn to announce the blessing of a new day. Now, I don't get the whole thing, but apparently angels get to take turns about saying, it's a new day. I have something from a Sanskrit prayer that's in our hymn book, and I think it fits. Listen to the exhortation of the dawn. Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today well lived makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. Such is the salutation of the dawn. So that Sanskrit reminds me of this moment, my interpretation of this angel saying, I get to say something as profound as that. Would you let go? And Jacob says, not until you give me a blessing. And so a blessing is given, and Jacob's name is changed to Israel. And there's a whole story that goes from that. He's given a new name. He's given his own blessing, a blessing meant for him, not one that was somebody else's that was stolen. Each one of us, I believe, deserves the blessing that is ours. It's right for us to demand our blessing in life and not to take it from others. This week I was listening in the rotation of various things I have on my devices that play through the car speakers. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech came up. Free at last, free at last. Thank God we're free at last. And he says, America issued a promise with a check that bounced back saying insufficient funds. And the Bible talks about a jubilee every 50 years where the slaves are set free. And yet in America, for generations, there were those who told, you can't have property. You can't even keep your family. Or it'll be generations more before you get your blessing. Now maybe this is a big jump for you. Bob was doing some old dusty reading of Bible to now America. The story was about somebody coming to America, and it's like, yay, the American dream, and everything's going to work out all right. But not everybody arrived. Everybody. In some ways, we could say someone's blessings were stolen. In that case, for those of us who receive blessings that weren't ours, how do we go about changing things? We talk in our UU principles about justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And I think there's a lot about the compassion, the hugs, the family passing down of love in the story, or the ideas of the blessing beatitudes that I read from Robin Tanner as a reading. You know, blessed are those who are muddy, blessed are those who have reached out to those who are injured on the side, those who have given up winning. That's a huge thing, to give up winning. For equality, maybe? I grew up believing in equality. Unitarian Universalists were for equality. That was a big deal in the generation in which I grew up. But that's not what our principle says. It doesn't say equality, it says equity. And that's where Martin Luther King's words really hit home this time I heard it. Reaching back to religious language, the mountains will be laid low and the valleys will be raised up. That's taking away from some place and filling up in another. That's equity. It means that people are having stuff taken away from them. Sense of privilege, may feel that it's unfair. But the equity is to say, no, we're smoothing down the mountains and raising up the valleys. Maybe God was a communist. I can say that in a UU congregation. Maybe, then, when I feel as if I'm losing out on something, I can look at it in relation to that quote, in the purpose of maybe it's a blessing for someone else. Maybe it wasn't mine to begin with. I don't know if all of this weaves together the way it does for me. That's why I said I was going to wander around out here. Wandering around from a biblical story in which society said, you're not first, you'll never be first, or there's only one blessing to hand out. We have a shortage of blessings. To jump to Martin Luther King Jr. and some of the most difficult passages of what he was saying. We like the freedom ring from Stone Mountain in Georgia. We like, we like those parts. But do we get the part about the mountains being brought down and the valleys being brought up? That's a social justice statement right there. And I would like for us to maybe bring forth a better place, the best of what we know forward, equity in a world that needs it. I think we can believe that each of us has some way to give a blessing to others, and maybe to give up some blessings that weren't ours to begin with and seek our own. Thanks for listening. Thanks for maybe living into this idea. I'm going to end this message with an aspiration. Hymn number 323, Break Not the Circle.